thanks Fabrizio for your introduction. So, as you said, I'm an engineer. So, this is basically my scientific career. So in 2012, I got my master degree in Politecnico di Milano in materials engineering. And after that, I subscribed to the PhD in materials engineering. And I devoted my activity mainly to optics. So as you can see here, I'm working on a little telescope. And in particular, I dealt with materials for optical applications. And in that... And so I dedicated my activity to materials for optical application during my PhD and also afterwards in my postdoc, as a postdoc researcher at the CNR Institute of Photonics and Nanotechnology in Padua. However, I have a parallel career and a parallel passion, let's say so. So in 2007, in summer, I was in Dublin, in Ireland, and I was working in a bike repair shop. And there I was listening to music, and I came into this group. They're called The Pale. It's a music group where there's basically a singer and a mandolin player. So I really like the mandolin in that style of music. And so in 2008 I bought my first mandolin and I started to play. I was already playing guitar a little bit, but then I started playing the mandolin, which became one of my spare time activity here. It's just me playing with my group. We play in a dialect from my hometown, Dialetto Bormino, and we make some songs. So it happened that my first mandolin was left into sun, so it collapsed, it broke. And I said, oh no, why? So I tried to fix it myself. My dad was a mechanic. I am a mechanic. I graduated before at the ITIS in Sondrio. So I tried to fix it myself, and once I opened it, it was so badly made that I thought that I could do it better myself. So basically, I built my first mandolin. It took about 1 year to build it. Well, that's the start of my illness or virus of lutherie, which is building musical instruments. So as I said, until 2018 I was in Padua working as a postdoc researcher, and then I said, well, now I'm in my 30s, and if I want to change my lifestyle, that's a good point to do it, because otherwise later on it will be harder and harder. So why to become a luthier? Well, because it's cool, first. Because I wanted to live close to home. So I'm from Bormio, as I said, and I wanted, well, Padua, it's a really flat town, I don't like it very much. And also I wanted to come back home, back close to home, and live with my girlfriend Caterina, who is here listening to me. Thank you. And then there's another reason, and this reason is because I wanted to work on something that was my own activity. And well, how can one become a luthier? Well, you can do it yourself, which is the hard way. There are schools of lutherie all around Italy and Europe. A famous one is in Milan, but they take 3 to 4 years to become a luthier. And they are full-time. So to start a school when I was already 31 years old and dedicate 4 years of activity with no income, it was quite hard at that point. And then I thought to go and visit some luthiers and ask them if I could learn something from them. It's not been easy because many luthiers want to keep their secrets. Many of them don't want anybody who hasn't studied lutherie earlier, so they just want something independent that can work on their projects. But I was really lucky, and I met Federico Gabrielli. He's 62 years old now, yeah, and he's working since 40 years making mandolins. Mandolins is what I was interested in, and so I went to him one day and I said, well, hi, I'm Martino. This is my first mandolin. Can you teach me something more? And he said, well, okay, we can do it. You can come and visit me once in a couple of weeks, once a month, and we can start working together to build a mandolin. And so this was the first idea, so to go to his workshop and learn something little by little. But then I had another idea, and this idea was to try to use my knowledge as an engineer and as a researcher and apply it to building musical instruments. And so I started to look around, and I discovered that there is this World Wood Day Foundation, which is a non-profit organization based in California. And among the aims of this non-profit foundation, one is to give grants and funds to make research for the use of wood as a sustainable material, basically. And each year they give a grant for research projects about wood and culture. So I said, well, mandolins are made of wood, they're related to culture for sure, but let's try to propose a project. So we put up this team. So there's Federico, there's Claudio Canevari, which at the time was a researcher and teacher at the School of Lutherie in Milan. And we tried to propose a project which was a choice of wood in musical instruments, Italian red spruce and traditional mandolins. So it's about wood and mandolins. And we've been lucky, our project was funded, and we had a little money to make some research in this topic, which was not very big. There's not a lot of research in mandolins. So basically, this project consisted in three main points. One was to understand how mandolins work. The second is, why do we use wood to build mandolins, even nowadays when we have like composite materials and new generation materials, but still make them in wood, and why? And the third point was to use this knowledge to build a mandolin. Okay, first of all, what is a mandolin? A mandolin is a stringed instrument, a plucked stringed instrument. It was invented, well, it was born in 1700s, more or less, and it comes from older Baroque instruments as the lute. It has 4 pairs of metal strings and is tuned as the violin. And because of this, it had a lot of success, especially in the early 1900s. And it has a bowl back which resembled the one of the lute and of the old ancient musical instruments. It became very popular in 1800 and 1900, beginning of the 1900s, and both in folk and also in classical music. So Vivaldi, for instance, wrote some concerts for mandolin. So it's pretty famous, and it's pretty famous, or pretty used all around the world. So we try to understand how the mandolins produce sound. Is a little bit of this is the scientific part, but I will keep it simple. So basically, when the musician plucks the string, the string exerts force on the soundboard. Soundboard is the vibrating part of the instrument, the one that produces sound. So the string makes the soundboard vibrate, and the soundboard of each mandolin vibrates in different ways, many different ways. Here I've shown 3. These are computer simulations of the vibration of the soundboard. So it can vibrate in different shapes, at different intensity, different amplitudes, and therefore it can have different sound. So that's the reason why different mandolins or different musical instruments play in a different way. So we investigated this thing, and well, we saw that we could make scientific measurements to understand why a certain mandolin plays that way. And why there are so many differences, why there are differences, and why there are so many, because you can use different types of wood, and then it also depends on how you use the wood, so on the thickness, on the shape, and many other factors. So, well, why wood? Well, wood is one of the best materials to build structures. We use it for roofing, for building, for buildings, and for many things. And why is it so? Because it combines 2 important features. One is that it's light, and one is that it's stiff, it's rigid. Here, just for comparison, we can see this is the stiffness of materials, and this is the density. So spruce has a stiffness of 10, while steel is much more stiff, is much more rigid. However, it is much more dense. We can combine these two figures and obtain something that is indicative of how a material is good to build a musical instrument, which is called radiation ratio. So the higher is this number, the best is the material to build musical instruments. So we can see that spruce, which is the usual wood that we use to build musical instrument, has a figure of 12. Steel is at 0.7, so this is why nobody would build a guitar or a mandolin in steel. And also plastic is not very good. And to do something which is similar to that of wood, we have to use composite materials, like carbon fiber. So it's not easy to replicate the properties of wood. It is a nanostructured natural materials, and it's incredible. There's a little star here, and that means that not all pieces of wood are the same, not even two boards cut from the same log from the same tree. And so we had to cope with this problem. This problem is that when you go to the wood yard, a shop where they sell wood to build musical instruments, you have to choose, and you have plenty of pieces of wood that are really the same if you don't know what you're looking for. So we had to develop some techniques based on what we learned during this project to measure the properties of wood and select the wood to build musical instruments. Not only to select, but also to understand how to use a certain piece of wood to obtain a certain sound. Okay, which sounds like alchemy, but it's something you can do. The project should end with one mandolin, but then it was too much fun, and so we built 4 mandolins. These 4 mandolins, they are really same. The very same shape. This looks a bit different, but overall it's just a different color. Let's see. So they look very similar, but the soundboards are very different. Wood is used in different ways. There are different thicknesses. There's a different bracing pattern, and beneath the wood there are also some composite materials that, if they are used the right way, they can do interesting things. So basically these 4 instruments have completely different sounds, and it was a good starting point for us because we could propose them to musicians and understand what they liked most. And well, because of that, Federico and I, we wanted to start a collaboration with Carlo Alonso. Carlo Alonso is one of the best mandolin players in the world. I'm not scared to say so. He's really one of the best, one of classical mandolin players. And we went and visited him. He's from Savona. We went to him with our 4 mandolins, and we said, well, what do you think? And he was really impressed. He was really happy with one of those in particular. And so we told him, well, why don't you want to collaborate with us? Why don't we build a mandolin together? And so it took around 1 year, but in the end we came out with this one, which we called Mandolino Perfetto, which is not a perfect mandolin. Notice the R. Okay, it's not a perfect mandolin. Why we call it so? Because we made like a WhatsApp group, and everybody was keep writing and writing and writing. No, I want this color, this way, this other way. It was quite a long story. And so we said, well, if it's not perfect after 1 year working together, well, it has to be perfect. And then, well, it's not really perfect, but it's the best we could do with our knowledge, basically. So basically, this is from research back to music. And so when I tell people that I left engineering and research to do the luthiers, to build musical instruments, they say, well, you're crazy. And why did you waste all your knowledge? But, well, that's an ill-posed problem. It's not a good question. I didn't waste anything, basically. Because during research and during academia, I could gather like hard skills, like understanding materials, understanding how to use them, understanding new technologies like 3D printing, for instance. I knew how to take choices during the design of an instrument. I build my instrument from bottom to top. I mean, I draw them, I think, of a sound and certain features, and then I do them, I put them into the instruments. And then I also gather some programming skills. I use a lot of programs that help me in the design. But most of all, what was really useful were the soft skills, so to speak English, for instance, and sell mandolins abroad, to show and explain my work, to collaborate with other colleagues, with other luthiers, and also with musicians, which is not really easy sometimes. And also I learned how to teach. Well, in academia I was teaching to students optics, but basically now I'm teaching acoustics and the physics of musical instruments, which is something that is really interesting to me. And then the other question is, why did you come back to Valtellina? There's no mandolin players in Valtellina. Well, there are two. One is me and one is another guy from Sondrio. No, the reason is not for the wood. I mean, we have good wood in Valtellina, but it's very hard to go gather wood, saw the logs, and then make it dry over a few years. That would take a long time. I did it, but it's not the real reason I came back. Well, since 2020 I opened my little workshop in Bianzone here in Valtellina, and basically here I build my instruments that I sell abroad, mainly abroad, sometimes in Italy, but at the moment I didn't sell any mandolin in Valtellina, but well, if anyone is interested, then you can give me a call. But basically here I repair a lot of instruments. There are people playing here, so I repair guitars, bass, and everything. In the meanwhile, one of the researchers I showed you before, which was Claudio Canevari, he was a teacher at the School of Lutherie, and he retired. And so now I'm teaching acoustics at the School of Lutherie in Milan, where he was teaching before. So this is not Valtellina, it's Milan, but it's pretty close by. Well, let's say it's close by. Then in 2021 I won another World Wood Day research grant, and this time it was not about wooden mandolins, but it was about ancient mandolins. So it was about making a copy of a mandolin, which was it's a mandolin from 1784, so it's a really old mandolin, and it's preserved at the Museum of the Musical Instrument at the Castello Sforzesco in Milan. So we wanted to make a copy using really modern technologies like coherence tomography, like X-ray scans and acoustic measurements and so on. Well, also this activity, I can do it here in Valtellina. I mean, all you need is basically a connection, an internet connection, when the fiber will arrive at home, well, hopefully soon. And basically I have to go in Milan just sometimes, but then all the rest of the research work I can do it by computer and at home, and also the building of the mandolin I can do it in my workshop in Bianzone. Then another one of my activities is my acoustics workshop. So I said, well, it took me like 3 or 4 years to get acquainted, to use a bit of acoustics in building my instruments, and now I thought it would have been a good thing to teach to luthiers how to use acoustics. So once or twice a year I make this workshop where luthiers come and we discuss together. It's 2 or 3 days, and I teach them acoustics, and we use it together to design and to develop their own instruments. Well, I said I left research, but then I went back to research, because since March I'm a postdoc researcher at the University of Bergamo with Professor Maurizio Santini. And well, I knew him because of this research project. We wanted to make a X-ray scan of the instrument. So he has one of these machinery in Bergamo, one of the best in Europe actually. And I said, well, I would like to come to you with this mandolin, and we want to make a copy, and I explained him all the project. And he said, well, maybe there can be a possibility for you to work here. And then thanks to the PNRR grants, he put up a competition for a postdoc position, I won this competition and now I'm working then. So I'm back to research again. Well, this is more or less my story from research to making mandolins to research again. Well, thank you for your attention. If you have any question, I will be glad to answer.